The 49ers made some interesting roster moves this week that look to make room for an important player returning from injury, as well as two under-the-radar signings that look to bolster two important position groups for the Niners as they look to finish off this regular season strong. We're going to break that all down for you on this episode of Niners Digest. My name is Ethan Galbraith. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any Niners updates. We're going to give you everything we got, including what you need to know about the Niners roster as they head into their first game out of the bye week. It's Titans week. Tennessee is coming to Levi's this Sunday to play the Niners in what may seem like a lopsided game, but again, it's any given Sunday. So it's important that the Niners are getting an important player back, or it looks, at least all signs are pointing to it, for this game. Eddie Pineiro looks to be back this week versus the Tennessee Titans. Earlier this week, the Niners released kicker Matt Gay, clearing the way for Pineiro to return. Before we continue, of course, props to Matt Gay. He stepped in and didn't really miss a beat with the Niners and this special teams unit. He played well. He did his job. So for Pineiro to come back, it looks like it's going to be, continue doing what we're doing. And Pineiro was asked about this earlier today because it was a little frustrating about his injury. He said, quote, "It was a little frustrating because I haven't missed a game in almost 4 years. So missing those 2 games is very frustrating for me, but we're back." We are, in fact, back. Eddie Pineiro has become a fan favorite this season, not just for his on-the-field performance, but his personality. But his on-the-field performance has been a main reason as to why the Niners special teams unit has undergone a renaissance and become one of the best, if not the best, in football, which is a far cry from the 2024 performance. So having Pineiro back is a big move, and that's huge for the Niners, not just for the Titans this week, but going forward for the regular season and postseason matchups. But the Niners also made 2 pretty under-the-radar signings this week that look to be more so depth pieces. But again, with all the injuries stacking up, you just never know. And so I want to start with the first one that happened yesterday, which was the Niners signed Javon Baker to their practice squad. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Baker is a former Patriots wide receiver taken in the 4th round out of Central Florida. And he didn't really play much when he was with the Patriots. He only registered 1 career catch with them, and now he's coming to the Niners practice squad in the home stretch of the season. So you shouldn't really expect Javon Baker to be this lights-out, instant impact player unless the Niners need him to, which, again, while he hasn't done much in the NFL yet, that doesn't mean he doesn't have anything to prove. So keep that in mind, and I think also I've talked about this previously with Eric Kendricks, for example. Javon Baker is a good depth piece. I mean, of course, it's a little bit different from Kendricks because Kendricks is a proven aged veteran who shows that he can still play well despite him getting up there in age, whereas Javon Baker is a younger veteran who has not really shown much. But again, could it be that he wasn't good enough to play on the Patriots, or did he not get the chance to prove himself? It really just depends because of all the different systems. So if you want to see the ceiling of Baker's potential, you don't go to his professional statistics. You go to his college statistics, where he started at Alabama and was a part of that stacked wide receiver room that won a national title in 2020. But then he transferred to Central Florida, where he became one of the best receivers in the country. I look at his 1,100 receiving yards and 22 yards per reception that led the Big 12. And the 22 yards per reception really stand out to me because that fills a void that the Niners have been lacking, or at least been inconsistent in this year, because of course the Niners receiver room has dealt with injuries like a lot of position groups this year, but it's especially apparent when you look at the statistics. Obviously the headline has been Christian McCaffrey leading the Niners in receiving yards, which is amazing. It's a huge feat and a testament to CMC's health this year, but there's a big drop off from McCaffrey's 800 plus yards to then, and second is Kendrick Bourne, who has yet to crack 500 yards. And of course, Bourne hasn't played every game. Was a midseason pickup. And then Jawan Jennings, of course, missed multiple games with injuries. George Kittle there at nearly 400, also missed games. Pearsall just below him, also missed games. So it's not completely accurate to show the Niners have been lacking receiving yards because, again, they've dealt with a lot of injuries. But Javon Baker, if need be, if he were to come in and play important reps for the Niners, he fills a void that the Niners haven't really seen much this year. So there's still questions about how he fits into the offense, but he debuted at practice today, and the vibes were high. It looked like it was smooth sailing so far. We'll see more about it, of course, as the week progresses and, as the rest of the season progresses with him on the roster. Another important injury update that leads into the second signing that happened today was the Niners obviously, of course, are waiting for important defensive players to come back. And while Kyle Shanahan announced today that Tatum Bethune and Nick Martin, among other players, are not going to be back, or at least they weren't practicing today, so it looks like they will not be back for the Titans game this week, they did get a positive update on Yetur Gross-Matos, who Kyle Shanahan announced his practice window would be open starting tomorrow. Now, that still doesn't really help now, because with his practice window being open tomorrow, it's still likely that he will not play this Sunday against the Titans. But it is a positive sign. Of course, Gross-Matos was on IR, but it was expected that he would come back. We just did not know when. So for Gross-Matos to come back, that's a positive sign, at least even if it's just to practice for now. But that ties into another signing that the Niners made today, actually, and it was they signed cornerback Isaiah Bolden to the practice squad. Isaiah Bolden is also a former Patriot who didn't really play much on defense when he was there. He played primarily on special teams for the Patriots, and now he's being added to the practice squad. I understand that these signings aren't quite game-breaking or news-breaking, but they are important signings that are important to keep track of, especially Bolden, because Isaiah Bolden was, as I mentioned, primarily a special teams player. So for the Niners to bring on Bolden to the practice squad shows that they see something in him that they can prove that they could potentially use if needed, even if it's on the special teams unit. And I say even on the special teams unit because, again, the special teams unit is crucial to the Niners this year as they're one of the best in football. So if you see Bolden making an impact, it might not be on defense making an important pass breakup or an interception or tackle. It might be playing on special teams, which, as we've seen throughout the season, especially down the home stretch so far, special teams has won games for the 49ers. So keep an eye on Bolden and Baker, of course. But, of course, if you know Isaiah Bolden's story, you might be concerned about his injury history. Of course, during his rookie season, he was hospitalized for a very scary injury that he had in a preseason game. So I think that there's obviously, you keep an eye on that. But I think one way to look at this, you got to look at it from a different perspective. What if this injury was part of why Bolden wasn't able to prove himself and why he was available in the first place? Of course, with his injury, that derailed his rookie season. He didn't really get to showcase much. And then in his second season, he played primarily on special teams. So again, don't get your hopes up about Bolden or Baker making these crazy impacts for the Niners right now, at least. But, they work in under the radar ways, little ways that prove to be important for the Niners and their other players as the season progresses and once we get to game day. So my final thoughts are this: don't expect otherworldly performances from these two signings, but it is positive because the Niners always need depth pieces, especially as, again, I go back to this quote nearly every video. John Lynch said, the NFL, the Super Bowl race might just come down to who gets lucky with health. So the Niners are trying to be as healthy as possible, and they look to be 2 steps closer to it with Pineiro's likely return this weekend against the Titans and Yetur Gross-Matos' practice window being open for his inevitable return as well. So we'll keep you all updated on the 2 signings, how well, if and when we see them, and how well they perform, as well as Pineiro's return and the timeline on when Yetur Gross-Matos will return as well. But for now, that's all for this episode of Niners Digest. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Ethan Galbraith, and we will see you in the next video.